William Shatner is going to join us later this hour. We have once again misplaced Stugotz. Don't know where he is. Going to probably have to put some rules in place as a company to make sure that we know where he is at some point. But I want to get to a number of different things. One of them involves Jason Kelce. He and his brother Travis are doing a podcast together. This much makes Stugotz crazy because Stugotz has thought that he is going to turn Travis Kelce into a protege where they both make money off each other. His new Golick, what are you shaking your head about, producer of God Bless Football?
I haven't heard the end of this podcast for months now. I've been pitching this show to the company for 18 months. No one listens to me, buddy. Look, they're number one now. No one listens to me. We could have had them. Okay, Stugotz, we don't.
Yes.
Keep it moving.
Yes, we could have had him, except every time he says that he's got a business deal with Travis Kelce and everything's ready to go, we can never get a hold of Travis Kelce to even get him on any of our shows. So Stugotz tends to overstate.
Or Stugotz.
Or even Stugotz. That's correct. So that's part of the problem. But Jason and Travis are doing this show together, and Jason Kelce is arguing that cornerback is the hardest position to play in football, not quarterback. I think the hardest skill in sports is cornerback, harder than hitting a baseball, given the precision of what quarterbacks and receivers can do these days. But this is Jason Kelce's argument, which is different than mine. Quote, "It's so hard that white people can't even do it."
I mean, that's true. It's true.
They don't even let white guys try anymore. They just scout you and say, nah, you're done.
In some perspective, it is odd that there are a fair amount of white wide receivers, but zero white corners. Is Jason Sehorn still the last
Look
one?
at him. How about Jason Sehorn? Impressive.
Yeah, he played in the Super Bowl as a cornerback. I said that he did nothing with his life outside of cornerback other than ab crunches and brushing his hair. But that guy, is he the last one? He
last played in 2003.
Yeah, is he the last one, though?
He last played in standard def.
I always notice when there's a white corner. I notice when there's a black punter. I notice when there's a black holder of field goal kicks.
Interesting.
I don't see them very often.
I'm just trying to think who in sports or in football we could say maybe we could put him at corner. Like Cooper Kupp, maybe?
Yeah, Cooper Kupp could absolutely be a corner. Why couldn't he be a corner?
Oh, you think that wide receivers can be corners?
I'm just trying to think of, hypothetically, who could be a corner, and I can't think of anyone outside of Cooper Kupp.
Trayvon Diggs said Stephon Diggs could easily be a corner. That it's just a difference. That if you apply yourself to it, you could easily do it.
Because
his brother.
Corners are viewed as, thank you, Billy. Corners are viewed as wide receivers who can't actually catch the ball. So Cooper Kupp would then be a great corner, according to this measurement of Trayvon Diggs, who is the brother of Stephon.
If we're just saying it's just a measure of speed and footwork, right? And I mean, I'm not just reducing it to it, but Cooper Kupp has those things in abundance. He would presumably have the physical tools in order to do that job. Now, it is an immensely difficult job because Cooper Kupp, at the beginning of a play, knows where he's going, and the person across from him doesn't. That is the immensely difficult part of the job, and maybe there is something inherent in that maybe white guys just aren't good at, but it seems impossible.
Can we circle back around on this NFL investigation and the Daniel Snyder, this report, because there are a number of things interesting about it. One of the things is that he's been investigated for 9 months now. 9 months of resources poured into an investigation is going to reveal something as these owners' meetings come to a head. And this report by ESPN, its timing is not coincidental. I don't know if a Thursday night game before Washington plays, as ESPN Daily has Don Van Natta ready to go, I don't know if tonight is the timing that is purposeful, but certainly before these owners' meetings that will get a download on what this investigation of 9 months has revealed. That timing, it seems purposeful. And the thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, beyond what we were saying about ESPN doing journalism, quote unquote, against a league partner that now might turn around, according to Dave Sampson, and tell Amazon, don't talk about this. This is a dying thing. ESPN, it's dying also at ESPN, but ESPN is keeping it alive with a Pulitzer Prize winner doing this kind of reporting. But I thought in the middle of it, there was the burial of information that is less sexy than I'm hiring private investigators and I hate everybody and I'm going to bring the lead down and I got dirt on everybody. All that stuff people like. But at the core of the story I read, the thing that jumped out at me was owners being fed up that Daniel Snyder has not yet gotten government financing for a new stadium because Daniel Snyder will never get that in that town. And therefore their business, the franchise, becomes less valuable. Everything with Daniel Snyder is palatable right up until there. And I thought that it's less sexy. I don't think it's interesting to people, but Daniel Snyder in that town as one of the most hated people, not just in sports, he's the most hated sports owner they've ever had in that town by leaps and bounds. Washington used to be a respectable franchise, and it's been 20 years of jokes since he took it over. They don't have anything there. There is nothing worse for the business. And you could say toxic workplace is worse. There is nothing worse for the business that he will never get government funding in that town for a stadium. And now is why the owners are realizing that, as they've realized that one of the plays here is that the owners, because he's gone into debt, one of the plays the owners can make here is not extend him certain courtesies where they are financially strangling him and forcing him to sell the team because they want to get somebody in there who will get government financing for a stadium. Nobody cares about stadium talk, but that's at the center of why it is that these people might be fed up with all of the conflict now.
The answer is always when it comes to other owners, and that I think is David Sampson brings a fairly cynical view of sports business to the program, but that is, I think, one of the areas in which he is right, which is to the other 31 NFL owners, that is what matters. And it's their inability to get sponsorship as well. But that stadium stuff is really important because a lot of sports team valuations is just real estate. It's just, do you have a long-term contract for a giant plot of land in the middle of a major metropolitan area that raises the value of your team? And ultimately, every owner wants to see everyone else's team go up in value. I heard recently that in the NBA, there was not a lot of people thrilled with how the Minnesota Timberwolves were sold, because it just sort of felt like Glenn Taylor, the then owner, sort of fell in love with A-Rod and gave it to him for a price that was below what other people would have bought the Timberwolves for. And they were not happy that an NBA team only got $1.5 billion, which sounds preposterous, but they basically want to set a precedent that every NBA team's worth at least $2 billion. And Minnesota, because Glenn Taylor likes A-Rod, gave him a sweetheart deal on a team. But I think this stadium situation is just, you are ruining the sale of your team. If you can't go to a new owner with a new stadium deal, you're going to get less for it. And so the headline, Washington Commanders sell for blank amount of dollars, is going to be lower, and thus the overall value of franchises goes down.
Chris Cote wanted to correct us here on something that we did yesterday. You're saying we got it wrong on Musgrove, on Padres horse, Padres ace, Joe Musgrove. Yesterday, we were a little flippant and lazy about saying, yeah, he was definitely cheating. They're all cheating.
Well, it's just more information has come out after. I didn't see this before we spoke about it. His spin rate was up, but it turns out in the playoffs with adrenaline, everyone's spin rate is up in the playoffs. So, like, the average is 5.5 and his was up 5.7. So,
everyone's cheating.
Okay, that's a theory.
I mean, which one would you be more likely to hug?
It makes sense that people would be fired up. I'm going to assume not everyone is cheating.
Or not even fired up, or that over the course of 33 regular season starts, you don't give your 100% to all of it. But in a scenario in which you're pitching at most 2 games in a series, you give everything to it because they might be your last 2 games of the season. There could be a natural raise in performance. I wonder, I guess, is that commensurate with previous years? I don't know how far back spin rate data goes, but is that commensurate with raise in previous years?
I just love Mad Dog, though, just being like, enough with it, though. Get out of here with the nerd coming up and telling me about spin rate. I'm watching the game.
In Mad Dog's defense, I do sort of wonder, like, we have answers to baseball now. Like, everything is solvable via math. We have the ability to understand the game completely to the point where there are almost no debates left. Like, for example, yesterday, we were debating Joe Musgrove's spin rate, and then there is a scientific answer to the question. We'll have to go, oh, okay, well, that's the correct answer.
I hate
Moving
it.
along.
I don't like that at all. Too much information. Too many answers. I just want to argue. Just want to know my gut. His ear was glowing. What do your numbers say about that? Why was his ear doing that?
People say that there's it's icy hot. It gets everybody a little bit extra amped up, and it's not. I like conspiracies too in sports. And
What's the answer though?
Google.
Your math.
Google has ruined the sports argument.
I think
Google's ruined everything, by the way. This is a conversation we can have another day. Kids are stupid as hell right now, and it's because they don't need to learn anything
Sounds
because
like what
of
happened
Google.
today.
Okay? Like, we don't have to have this conversation today. No one needs to learn anything anymore. Kids are dumb as rocks because they just go to Google and Google tells them answers immediately. They don't need to go to the library. They don't need to find an Encarta. They don't need to go and get
Wow,
different
Encarta.
types of encyclopedias. What's
Microfiche.
Encarta? Get the hell out of here with what's Encarta. What is
It
Encarta?
was a CD that was like basically an encyclopedia on a CD.
Do you know what an encyclopedia is before we even go down this path?
Encyclopedias. Yeah, I know an encyclopedia.
Okay, like a cart catalog. Are you familiar with
I don't know
any
what that is.
LexisNexis.
I pushed
What?
back though. I took my daughter to the library a few days ago.
And
It was
you
empty.
checked out DVDs.
I was going to say,
completely
was it
empty.
haunted?
Were there
like
cobwebs?
Ghostbusters.
Like, what was
People
going
were
on?
there?
Were you voting? What were you doing at a library?
I decided my daughter, she was just like, Daddy, let's do something. There's a library near my house. So we went, checked out a couple books. Yeah.
But you don't have to know anything, to Billy's point.
Well, you just have to know how to find it.
Correct. And I actually think that in some ways you can sort of apply for a job and then just sort of figure it out. Like if you applied to work here and you didn't know how to use Adobe Audition, like a 3-hour YouTube tutorial later, you could eventually learn how to use Adobe Audition and then, start editing podcasts for us.
Well, it's about retaining the information.
Right.
Are you remembering this thing
knowing
all
how
the time?
to learn is almost as important as just knowing any. Like there are people, presumably a lot of whom work at ESPN, that they could just, like just figure like would know like the participants in the 1977 World Series, just know it off the top of their head. There are all these savants that work in sport. I think we're losing the savant. There's no need for the savant anymore. Why would I like for me like why would I know who the 2013 NL Cy Young is? I have no clue.
Chris Carpenter.
I imagine a sports fan like me
Good guess.
might have known that 20 years ago. Like who won the Cy Young 8 years ago? There's no need to know that.
Clayton Kershaw won 2013, and I'll say
But not last night.
you should have guessed that one. Well, I mean, of course, it's the playoffs. What do you expect?
right. Dodgers, Yankees.
I want to.
We'll talk about that another day, though, Dan. That's
I
not
think
for
we
today.
just did.
Yeah.
I think we just. Unless you have more. Do you have more
no.
than
Yeah,
that?
I
We'll
don't
talk
know.
about it another day.
Wainwright was second. Damn it.
Can we hire a private investigator to go try and find Stugotz? I think Meadowlark Media should spend whatever he wanted us to spend on Travis Kelce's podcast on a private investigator for Stugotz. Can we talk about what is happening in Iowa right now, because it's making me laugh to see after we have spent years talking about Kirk Ferentz. We're old enough around here as a show to remember Kirk Ferentz, the coach at Iowa, is a young up-and-comer for all of the hot NFL jobs. He has now got the worst offense in all of college football. It's ranked last in total offense. It is laughable to watch that team play. They won one game 7-3. They did not score the touchdown. It was 2 safeties and a field goal.
That's the best stat of the year.
They are
College football will not get better than that.
They are impossibly awful. But Kirk Ferentz, who formed a committee in the offseason because he wanted to tackle some racism that there was in his program, and he put together some former players to put together a committee, and the head of that committee suggested that Kirk Ferentz should go, at which point Kirk Ferentz made the committee go and ended the committee, and the offensive coordinator, the beleaguered offensive coordinator of the Iowa Hawkeyes is Brian Ferentz. And he met the media for the first time since week 2, which might have been the week that they won 7-3 on 2 safeties and a field goal. And he was asked a number of different questions, including if his job evaluation is being affected by the fact that nepotism is in play for the job that he has. And he deferred the question to his father. But here is the quote that was great from this press conference. There's two options in life in any situation. You can surrender, and if you surrender, then I think the results are pretty much guaranteed. Or you can dig in, you can continue to fight, and you can try to improve and do things better. I will always choose option A.
Oh, no. I mean, that's like a scene out of The Office.
No, but then he keeps going. Done it in my personal life, done it in my professional life. I wouldn't be able to go home and look my children in the eye if I wasn't an option B person. I think I said option A. I started with surrender, right?
I mean, that's Michael Scott. He's Michael Scott.
I read that quote. I thought it was fiction. He got the order wrong, and what he chose was option A, which clearly was surrender by the order of things that he had presented them.
It's astounding. I believe also the arrangement at Iowa is that his performance is not reviewed by the head coach. It's reviewed by the athletic director. Like, the athletic director is like single, because like by virtue of nepotism, the head coach cannot objectively review the performance of his son, the offensive coordinator. And so he reports to the athletic director, who is very cozy with Kirk Ferentz. And so there is no objective analysis of Brian Ferentz, but again, they're 130th in the country in yards per play offense.
Total offense, last in the entire universe of people throwing around a college football.
The funny thing is, too, is that there is another example of a team who is anemic offensively that just solved all their problems by changing coaches. Did you see what Wisconsin did from 1 week to the next? They fired their coach, and the interim coach, I think they had 500 yards of offense, and they had like 10 yards per pass play. Their quarterback threw for several touchdowns, which at Wisconsin is alarming. Several touchdowns. Who do you think you are, Wisconsin Badgers?
So
but
true.
they became this explosive offense by merely changing the coach. That Iowa thing is fascinating. I was listening to the Shutdown Fullcast, and they were talking about how, like, at Oregon, they went from Chip Kelly, and they've had like 4 or 5 different coaches. And in some respects, in college football, a lot of programs just sort of do the devil you know, where it's like, yeah, we know what this is with Kirk Ferentz. It's 9 or 10 wins. It's boring, but what are we going to go hire someone else and it gets worse? Because that's a legitimate possibility. Think of Nebraska. They had Bo Pelini. They won 9 games a year. And for them now, 9 games isn't enough. And now they kill for nine wins. In some ways, the boring devil you know is better.
Surprised Wisconsin didn't go back to Barry Alvarez.
He's always looming. He's ready to coach. He's ready to coach a bowl game.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Is Barry Alvarez always looming at Le Batard Show? Guillermo, you lamented our ability to learn and that we don't need to learn anymore, just learn how to find things. I believe Pat Sajak was the philosopher who originally said that on this program. But in terms of not knowing anything, can any of you explain to me, because we had a good laugh at the expense of Drew Lock this offseason when Drew Lock lost his job to Geno Smith. Can any of you explain to me how Russell Wilson goes to Denver and looks incompetent and Geno Smith is now completing 75.2% of his passes? He's completing 3/4 of his passes. Second place on that list at 70%. Like, this is Drew Brees stuff, 75% of your passes. Second place on that list is Stafford. But he's 5 percentage points back, which means the distance between Geno Smith and Stafford is the distance, according to Field Yates, between Stafford and the 16th ranked quarterback in the league. As I watch Aaron Rodgers clearly be hurt by the loss of Devontae Adams and others. He's always thrown the ball a lot behind the line of scrimmage, but he's doing it more now than he has done it. And it's at least in part, the field just has gotten really small on the Packers because they don't have deep threats. And as I do quarterback measurements, I didn't have anybody. Tony, did you hear anybody telling us that Geno Smith was going to be what Geno Smith has been?
Dan, in fact, I did. In Tony's top 5 from week 4, my number one observation was they wrote Geno off. He didn't write back. Obviously, that was week 4, and he hasn't done anything but do better since then. But a lot of the stuff we're talking about in scheme related is Russell, we know now that Russell would go in and change the plays that were being called, and the whole idea of let Russ cook was actually the antithesis of the Seahawks being good. So now Geno Smith is buying into the offensive scheme, and he's doing well, right? Like maybe this is what Russell could have been if he would have trusted the offensive scheme that the Seahawks were running.
But it's still a misevaluation from everyone. He was the backup to.
It's been 8 years of misevaluation.
I want to know who the other, like, where are the other Geno Smiths right now? Who are the other backup quarterbacks that are, like, just sitting around that could be starters in this league?
To answer your question, Dan, there is one analyst, Stephen Ruiz of The Ringer, has been saying for years that Geno Smith deserves a starting job and that Geno Smith has been held down by either bad decisions by coaches. But I mean, he was bad with the Jets, but a lot of people are. And some people saw some inherent skill there. For me, the thing that's most impressive about him is not even just his raw completion percentage. NFL Next Gen Stats have this stat called completion percentage above expected. They sort of measure each throw against the coverage that you're throwing, the distance down the field, and he is 10 percentage points above where he expected to be on the basis of the throws that he's made. And the next two guys on the list are oddly New Orleans Saints, both Jameis and Andy Dalton from his one game. But the rest of the guys are 2, 1.9, 1.8% above expected. Geno Smith is 9.5% above expected. He's not just playing, he's playing so much better than he would expect it to be.
His Jets career, the signature moment is to be the last punched in the face controversy we had before the Draymond Green controversy that Colin Cowherd is now presenting because he's in business with Draymond Green, as Draymond lovingly and good teammate caught Jordan Poole as he fell to the ground so that he wouldn't hit his head, because Colin Cowherd is compromised by that business relationship with Draymond Green.
Stephen A. Smith said that Jordan Poole was knocked out.
I mean, it was obvious in the video, wasn't it? It looked to me like Jordan Poole didn't fall through a door. It looked to me like he fell straight to the ground and that Draymond was cradling him as he fell to the ground. It seemed like he was knocked out. No? I thought
Draymond was like, it seemed to me like he was pushing him against the wall, like that was going to continue, like that was not going to. And he was out.
What you guys were seeing in the video was somebody falling through the door, because I
didn't think there was a door. I thought that was a wall.
There's like padding up against the wall.
Yeah, it was like the padding. In
it's like the corner of the wall where the padding is, but he was knocked out.
No, he was knocked out. It looked like Draymond hit him and then was going for more, but he was just done.
I think he hit him. He didn't realize how hard he had hit him and how cold cocked it was. And then all of a sudden he's like, holy shit, I got to catch him because he is out. And then you see him dive and try to pick him up, but he was out, dude.
So Colin said there was a bug on his head or something. That's what Draymond was doing.
That Draymond was being a good teammate. Can you tell me, though, Billy? Can you explain to me? Do you have any... Let me start again. Hold on a second. I forgot where I was there. Hold on. Billy, why is your head in your hands every time? Let me start again. Billy, why is your head in your hands every time Tony talks?
Tony?
Yes, because he went to his notes.
Well, you ask him, did you hear any football people say that this is what we expected from Geno? He said, I did.
Well,
and then he referenced the Tony top 5, where he
I had it in week 4,
well,
though.
I mean,
that was week
but it's
1.
also after good performance. I think what Dan was asking is, did anyone in preseason say that Geno Smith? I laughed at the notion that Geno Smith was a starting quarterback.
He cited himself, and what he said
right.
was literally just reading a quote that Geno said.
Right.
So when you asked, did anyone in football see this coming, the answer is Geno Smith saw this coming.
They wrote Geno off, and he didn't.
He didn't write back. Exactly. I don't know what the problem is here.
I still don't even understand that quote.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
Nobody.
You get it, though.
No, we get it.
Like pen pals.
I get it, but I don't get it. But I get
Billy,
it.
they wrote
You know
him
what I mean?
off, right? He got a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, the NFL's written you off."
Wouldn't he
To
write?
not give it power, he didn't write
Who's
back.
they?
No stamps.
But if
There were no stamps on it.
if he proved them wrong, wouldn't that be him writing back?
No.
Hey, I am here.
No, he
I'm
doesn't
writing
have to write back. He gets to people see
His
him on
play
the
does the
TV,
writing.
right? Exactly, and go, "Oh man, we wrote off
So
Geno Smith."
they wrote him off, so he gets a letter in the mail that just says off.
Yes,
And he doesn't write back.
exactly.
He
Because
should
knew.
write back on.
But he didn't write back.
He didn't
He
write
didn't
back.
write back.
No,
No,
the play
no.
wrote back. The play
Did he
wrote
not-
back for him.
Did he not write back because he was so confident, or because he wasn't sure, so he didn't want to
No, he was
write
confident.
back?
He was confident.
Maybe he dictated it.
You guys have the letter from everybody in the NFL. I feel like it was every team in the league wrote him a letter that had the word off in it, and he threw them all in a paper shredder.
Off or awful? That's a good joke.
his wastebasket is full of off. It's
Right, no, it's
awful.
like if he was getting things from a bunch of teams, some people would write off.
Disagree
some
on that,
people
huh?
wrote awful.
Dan.
Look at that wonderful, discordant office.
I love your voice so much. I love your face. You make me happy upon arrival, sir. I imagine that, I imagine that you are this for a lot of people, correct? You arrive in a room.
I don't know, but it's a wonderful thing to hear.
You've gotten used to being Shatner. Shatner walks into a room. Shatner walks into a Zoom. People are happy to see him. That's correct or
Oh my
incorrect?
God. Would that it were true. It must be true. If you said it, it must be true.
You've got a new book, and we will talk about this now. He's a legend. He's an icon. Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder. It is a collection of essays. You're an artist, whether it's as an actor or a singer. So you've put together a collection of essays. Why? What are you trying to do with this?
Well, it's, I guess you could call it a collection of essays. I think it's linked by the thought that there's no such thing as coincidence, that the universe vibrates, the earth vibrates, we vibrate, we're all kind of vibrating, everything is vibration, color, sound, and
The dog is vibrating. The dog is also vibrating.
the dog is vibrating, vocal cords are vibrating, and if we could tap into that vibration, we may not be alone. We may be able to control some of our fate by the fact that there's no coincidence and that everything is enjoined and is at one.
So that it's not a distraction going forward. What is the name of the dog so we could put a name to a face and see what he looks like or she looks like? The dog, tell us about the dog.
There are two dogs. One is about 100 pounds, a Doberman, and the other is another Doberman, a female. She's about 75 pounds. And he's busy. Listen, he's got a job. The squirrels, you never know what a squirrel will do to you. And so you've got to be very,
You can't trust the squirrels. We all know that this is life advice we can all live by. Don't trust the squirrels. You got to.
Well, they're nuts. They if something that will eat a nut is a nut.
It's a bad.
You
joke.
are what you eat.
Shatner, that's a shit joke. You've been working in entertainment for too long to be passing that off as look at how it delights him. He delights with how shitty that joke was.
It's a stupid joke, but everything's a stupid joke, isn't it?
Well, let's talk about this for a second, because I am interested in your life philosophies. What have you learned? It's a broad question, but what have you learned about the afterlife? What do you think is out there beyond the vibration?
I'm going to tell you what is out there. I've been and I've come back, and I'm here to tell you the adventure. I guess that was Columbus would have said that. Listen, Queen and King, I'm going to go to this strange place. And, no, we're not going to give you any money, but it's got this strange place. No, give me a dollar. Okay, here's $1, and go and come back with tomatoes. Okay, and he did. Nobody knows. You can do it on faith. Oh yeah, you got pearly gates, and mom and dad will be there. Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me. So, what makes sense to me is entanglement. And this world and the universe is entangled, and there may not be anything that's accidental, that it's all happening because of the vibration. And I'd like to think that. I'd like to think there's an arc between, and I try to trace it musically, but in everything. Failure in the early album to triumphant success at Kennedy Center in another thing that's becoming an album, live at Kennedy Center. I filmed it and I made an album of it, so that'll be out there in the near future.
What gives you the greatest joy performing? What is the thing that while you're doing it is?
Let me tell you. Let me see if I can convey the feeling I had when I walked out in front of, I think, about 3,000 people, with material that was never been done before, with a 70-piece orchestra behind me, where with Ben Folds, who had asked me to come, said to me, There are times when I'm playing the piano with a symphony orchestra and I don't know where I am, because if you play, oh, say, can you see? So you know, oh, say, can you see? Because you're following the melody line. If there's no melody line, if it's all sweeping instruments or not, you don't know where you are. So I walked out onto that stage, took the microphone in my hand, and I've been in front of an audience on a continuous basis. I mean, almost every week, certainly every 2 weeks, I'm in front of an audience talking like I'm talking to you and trying to amuse and entertain.
For 70 years. For 70 years, right? You've been in front of people.
Exactly. Or longer. And I walked out and I took and the first words out of my mouth that I ad-libbed was, music is everywhere. Wow. And I had them, and at the end, they stood up and applauded, wouldn't let me off the stage. And that arc from failure to success is part of what I think is entanglement.
Did it make you emotional arriving? Because you're describing something recent as the most moving thing that you've done performing.
We were all crying. People were crying. Jeff Bezos was in the audience. He was crying. People were weeping because it was such an emotional release. This song that I finished with was written, it's called So Fragile, So Blue, delineation of my experience in space and done to this orchestra, and it repeats the phrase, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do about the destruction of the earth? When I finished the final, what can we do? The place exploded. And that's going to become a music video, which in my imagination is an anthem for saving the world. And it'll become something like we are the world. This will be, what can we do?
You like singing better than acting?
Well, the kind of thing I'm doing, I've evolved into doing, is a kind of poetry patter to a melody line usually. So I was with a Shakespeare company for 3 years. I know a little bit about iambic pentameter. I'm good at poetry. I have a sense of the rhythm, of the onomatopoeia of the language. So I'm kind of, that's my milieu. To take a lyric and do musical things with the lyric, come in and out shade and have the music support you. And in this case, the music was written for my performance. So it's supplanted and supported my performance. It was like magic. It was unbelievable. That's what the album and the video show, the television show, in a short while, which I presume will be called Live at the Kennedy Center, will be about.
What is the key to being what appears to be this healthy and happy at 91 years old?
Of course, I'm asked that, and I don't have an answer. Good genetics, really. But, you know, we all carry this inner child. So the inner child is like somewhere between 3 and 7, 8 years old. And that inner child, when we're born and we're becoming aware of the world around us, we're filled with wonderment. Like, wow, what is that? And what? And look, I'm holding mommy's hand. And look at her, she's smiling at me. And look at the sky is blue. Oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? And then, by the time we're teenagers, that's hammered out of us, and we go on to our little lives as best we can. If we could only retain that awe and that wonder about the world around us, and that's what the book is also about, I think. If we could retain that sense of not taking for granted the beauty that we're surrounded, and it doesn't matter what the beauty is. Even cement has a beauty in that it's cement. It's cement. Solid. Yeah. I mean, put your hands on cement. It's gritty and it's strong. If you just don't take anything, certainly everything, for granted, and look on with new eyes at everything that comes your way, that'll keep you going for quite a while.
Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder. It's a collection of essays, nature, joy, vibrations, inspiration. William Shatner is, of course, a legend in the entertainment industry. I don't want to ask you too many Star Trek questions, but I do want to ask you one about something I heard that I'd like to verify, that you were at the center, I don't remember, mid-'60s, of an interracial kiss on television that you made sure got on television by flubbing all the scenes on purpose that wouldn't have allowed it to get on television. What can you tell me about remembering any of that? And do I?
Yeah, that's an exaggerated version. So the script called for me to kiss this beautiful lady who was black, gorgeous girl, Nicole, and so we were actors, and there's a certain artistic distance. At the same time, it doesn't say you can't enjoy kissing a beautiful woman, which I did, and there was some discourse about Southern stations not playing that segment, and that may have happened. I think it did in a few places, but everything's different now. And I tried to. I've forgotten what I did, because as I think about it intellectually, it's impossible. I tried to make sure there was no editing point, but you can edit anything. So I don't know, but I tried. At least it was in my intent that they not disturb the actual kiss, not cut away. And I've forgotten how I did that. Okay,
and you denied the story the way I told it, but you've forgotten how you did it, so I reject your denial. I reject the way that you're denying. You say that I want to remind you something. This is your show, and you can deny anything you want. Thank you. I appreciate that. What do most people want to ask you about? Do you get good questions about Star Trek? Do you get, like, what are the questions you like getting? Only from intelligent people. Is he saying that I'm not one of them, or he's just? I didn't say that. I mean, I feel like you insinuated. No, that was your conclusion. But it was so long ago, I don't even know how you feel about talking about it, because it seems like you've evolved so much as an artist since then, and you enjoy doing things so much beyond that I don't know if it's an anchor or it's just a part of your past that you don't think about a lot. Again, like everything else, not to become accustomed, not to take it for granted. Captain Kirk and Star Trek, those 3 years as Captain Kirk, I was popular in live television, on Broadway, radio. I mean, I was working very hard prior to Star Trek. And in fact, I had a pilot on something else having to do with a loincloth and riding horses in the desert. That was going to be a series. So Star Trek, in its 3 years, gave me this celebrity. And from whence that celebrity has come my ability to talk to you, Dan. And you're very popular, you're very particular about who you have on your show, even though the frame is empty, except for a nonconformist engineer of some kind. That's right. That's exactly what I would call Chris Whittingham, right. Nonconformist engineer. Kind of an itinerant engineer who's enjoying everything. And I've got a full view of your studio and not you, which is perhaps an advantage that I have over most of your guests, who are forced to look at your face. I don't understand why you would be so hostile about this just because I asked you a Star Wars question. Let me ask you a better
Star
question.
Trek, that's
Star
a
Trek.
fine.
Oh, shit. That's my fault. I'm mortified. I will pay that fine in a moment. Can you tell me, though, because I used to love Esquire magazine put out these profiles on people who had learned a lot and lived a lot, what I've learned profiles. And I always wanted to hear one with you because I'm curious what you've learned. It's such a broad question, but so many years around the industry, so many years of having this curiosity that we've discussed in this book, where you want awe and wonder with your every daily step of reading, of performing, of singing, of writing, because it's a life better lived. Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder is the book. What has William Shatner learned?
Nothing. Nobody knows anything. Whatever you've learned isn't really necessarily true. And what you've learned, everybody has learned. Like, don't step on a tack. Like, oh, okay. Nobody knows anything. Nobody knows anything. Guy won a Nobel Prize for the molecules hanging together. He knows a little something that we don't know. But were he to tell us what it was, we'd say, well, of course, maybe. Nobody knows anything. Few people have good guesses. Let's put the camera here. 2 and 2 is 4. Okay, but those are guesses. Be just as well 2 and 2 could be 5 in another extension. Another life. And don't put the camera here, put the camera up here. It's humiliating and empowering.
How little we know?
How little? No, that little is even indicates we know something. We don't know anything. Everything we know changes. It'll change tomorrow. Speed of light is going to change. I guarantee you, in my lifetime, they're going to discover that the speed of light is not the constant they think it is. Wouldn't that be something? Would that change everything?
I don't think that's going to be. You think that's going to happen in the next couple of years? You think?
Everything changes. We make new discoveries, and well, I didn't say how long it was going to be.
I was hoping you wouldn't notice that. I just killed you in a couple of years. I have 40 years. I meant you think we're going to figure that out in the next 40 years.
Right. I intend to be around for a long time, Batard. Yeah, no, maybe that's the big thing. So that you could go, you could talk to anyone, anybody, because you're armed with the fact that they know nothing and you know nothing. So you're on an equal basis. Talk about, what the ice cream cone tasted like downstairs. Don't talk on a commonality, because though they may know why the molecules don't have to hang together, does that make you a good person? And what makes you a good person?
That's an excellent question right there. You want to answer it? What makes you a good person?
Don't hurt anybody.
That's that's a good life philosophy. See, this is the thing. This is better than nothing. What have I learned? Nothing. I feel like if I ask you a bunch of questions like that, I will get pearls of wisdom again and again, like don't hurt anybody. It's not a small thing.
But are they water pearls, or are they really good pearls that have a seed in them?
Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder. We'll let you go on this note. When did you know what you were going to do for a living?
I was 6 years old, and I was performing at 6. And I've never done anything else. Never. I've never driven a cab. I've never waited on a table. I just performed or wrote or whatever.
And 6 years old, you just knew. What were you performing? What were you doing? What was the feeling?
I was in a camp play, and I moved people to tears, something they wrote for me. And I looked out, oh, God, look at that. And that was the beginning
of a legendary career, sir. A pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for making the time for us.
It's a pleasure to have talked to you. Take care.
we were discussing back here yesterday. We had Michelle Beadle on, and to promote her fantastic Formula One show, and we were discussing how life for her changed after it was revealed what she was making at ESPN, and how people started treating her differently. There was a lot more scrutiny. There were people who would be in her Twitter mentions saying, you know, you don't deserve all this money, and you're on Get Up and all that stuff. And we were talking about the ways in which rich people's lives must change when all of a sudden their public information is put on blast. And I said to the group, I was like, I would kind of want a group of assholes around me, because if there are people who just praise me all the time, I would be skeptical of them. I wouldn't think that they were being genuine. I want some dicks around me, like, insult me. I was like, if you guys stopped calling me a murderer, if I all of a sudden happened into a bunch of money, I would be skeptical of all of you. I wouldn't think you were being genuine with me. And so we were kind of trying to figure out like how to be genuine. And Chris actually had a great idea for someone to exist around a rich person.
Rich people always are saying, I got too many yes men in my life. You need to eliminate yes men. I can be your no man. I'll be anyone's no man. If people are out there, if you're rich, you're looking for a no man.
You can't.
What do you mean?
You don't have it in you.
You won't. No, it's not that you don't have it in you. You won't last. Like, you will be fired very quickly.
Yeah, if you say yes to something, I guess you'll be fine.
It's not a good venture. We shouldn't. Let's save our money. No. That trip, too expensive. Let's go to Aruba. We don't need to go to wherever you wanted to go.
St. Bart's.
Whatever. I'm working on it. No. Let's just slow down. Let's think about this.
You don't have to yell at your stay-in chef. You can just say, "Hey, I didn't like that meal. That was an unnecessary yell that you had there."
The lives of rich people do tend to be slightly different. I saw that 50 Cent is trolling his son for complaining about $6,700 a month in child support because he's saying, first of all, you're 25. Like, why do you need child support? But furthermore, he had a bunch of his guys show up, knock on his door and say, hey, can we have $6,700 a month? Like, can we just have $6,700 a month?
Does that thing last until he's 26, like it's insurance or something?
I don't know how child support works and why it is that at 25 you would still need child support.
We then started talking about, if we were rich. Like, people that aren't rich love to play the game of what would I do if I just got like $100 million? Like, who would I help? All these people in my life. I would just start handing out $50,000 checks. And we realized that probably wouldn't. Like, in theory, it's good to say I would just give all my friends a check for $50,000. But, once you start doing the math, it's probably like, Dan, you have a lot of money. Was there ever a point when you just started just like going to old friends like, hey, here's money? No, right? It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't quite work that way, although 80% of lotto winners do go broke. It's close to 80% of people who did not have money come into a lot of money and then do not know how to manage their finances. But is it Clooney who gave all his buddies $1 million in cash in a suitcase? Like, just went...
Enough of that. Enough with that story.
Hold on. Why?
Because he sold his company for $1 billion. And then he's like, here's $1 million. It's like, oh, thanks, George.
Imagine if you got $1 million cash in a suitcase and the feds couldn't trace it. What would happen?
Whoa,
what is that all about?
Yeah, wait, what's happening here?
What is it coming out of that?
Who said that?
What is that?
I don't know what happened there. Lewis is back here somewhere.
What? Where?
Lewis is most definitely not.
Lewis said that.
You just blame that on Lewis. I think
He's
you
not
too.
even in today.
He's with Lewis on this.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Imagine you get $1 million
No.
in a suitcase, cash. Questions about it? People may have questions about it.
Well, there's no questions about it. If he sells a company for $1 billion, you know where the money's come from.
Yeah, but other people don't know. But you have that cash. Imagine that's an incredible.
Let me ask you a question.
What?
Oh, boy.
What would you do if you were handed $1 million in a suitcase? How would this play out? Because you're talking about,
do I have
you don't
to
let
clean
the
it?
feds
Do I have
know.
to clean it or not?
That's what I'm
Is it
asking.
getting
Why
money or
does
not?
everything
What
have
are
to be
you
ill-begotten?
doing? What is the matter with
friend-
you?
I'm just asking. He's asking me.
The scenario began with George Clooney sold Casamigos for $1 billion.
I love Casamigos, by the way.
A friend of yours sold Casamigos for $1 billion. You get $1 million of it. What do? Why does it have to be ill-begotten?
Well, because he didn't say Casamigos at the beginning. What he said is, you get $1 million cash in a suitcase. Do I have to clean it? Is it money that I can put in the bank?
Why are you doing this?
Why do you know?
Oh, let's
You
see.
Ray Donovan?
Yes, you do. How would you do it?
I have
How
to
would
clean
you,
it?
Yeah, how would you clean it?
What does this mean? Why?
That's what we're trying to figure out. Let's see how
Paul
deep this
Wash.
goes.
Are you like going to the casino and putting all this money in like a machine and then printing out a ticket?
Until people are suspicious.
Yeah, you can't do it in that big of increments. Like, it has to be a lot less. I'm not going to talk about cleaning money. The point is, if I were to get $1 million in cash, I'd put it in the bank.
You can't.
I mean, that is the least original thing that I have heard.
But when I said I didn't have to clean it, I would put it in the bank. That's the question that Billy asked me. If
Put
you
it in
had
the
it,
trust.
You wouldn't like buy yourself a house or
put it in the bank for a little bit, see what I'm working with. The real estate market's not doing that great right now.
It's not. It is. I understand. It's the safest thing to do. Although I guess in the present currency situation, it might not be. But I think that it is also the least creative thing. You have arrived. You've gotten $1 million in a suitcase, and suddenly the feds were there awfully fast.
They were.
They
They
your
always are, though,
thoughts
Dan.
in a way I couldn't believe. I was really confused that you couldn't celebrate the joy of being handed a suitcase with $1 million before you realized how much are the feds going to take. What do I need to do here to avoid taxes? But the least creative thing you could do is just put it in the bank. It's also one of the least. It's one of the worst things you can do with the investment is take the small percentage of money that the bank is going to give you to have your money and play with it.
from an interest standpoint,
Yes.
you'd rather like put it into like a municipal bond or something like that.
Not even a muni. Put it in something a little bit more, has a little bit more life, a little bit more gusto. But the point is, I put it in the bank, and of course, I'm lending that $1 million out to Chase or whomever, and they're going to use it and they're going to make trillions of dollars with it. But the point is that I'm going to put it there for a second, just for a second.
To look around, make sure the feds aren't
Make
following
sure
you.
the dust settles. I look around, feds aren't around.
what's what.
There's a lot of IRS agents. I don't know, guys, if you noticed, they hired another 90,000 IRS agents. I don't like that.
Just a second. As soon as you put it in the bank, then they know it's there. You're gonna have to pay taxes on it.
No.
There is a paper trail. Once you put it in the bank, you don't get to get out of that with no.
Yeah.
That's not really
You know
how
what?
that one
I was
works.
actually
Tell that
thinking,
to the auditors.
does like George Clooney have to give his friends like 1.457 million so that after taxes it comes
No,
out
he
to $1
needs to
million?
give them $1 million and not tell anybody. He's giving them
Well,
$1 million.
That's the thing.
That ship has sailed.
Who was the chatty Cathy in that scenario?
Well, there was pictures of it, and they put it on social media. I
Dumb.
guess.
I'm reading here. He was quoted about this in GQ.
Yeah.
He gave the government 38% of that. George Clooney split 12 ways among his 12 friends. George Clooney gave a lot of his money away to the government there because the gifts can't be that expensive without being taxed.
Wait, you can't just give somebody money?
No.
No,
I'm guessing Clooney can figure out
But I
ways
assume
to do
he
it.
got taxed on the money he got. Like that money should already be taxed.
I don't believe you can just give someone $1 million as a gift and not have the government come and
Let's
take
try
some,
it.
which is why
I
this is where I need my nomad.
I like that. I really like that idea,
I'm
Chris.
so glad I
feels right.
hired you as my
I
nomad.
like this idea.
Terrible idea.
This is a really good idea.
You guys should go to Stugotz with it. See how it goes. The story with the NFL today, you've seen some of the quotes, I imagine, right? Because some of the better ones are Dan Snyder to an associate. It's all anonymous quotes in this ESPN story. Quote, the NFL is a mafia. All the owners hate each other. That's Dan Snyder. And then another NFL owner, anonymously, that's not true. All the owners hate Dan. All of these people are subject to millions of dollars in fines because of how much the NFL does not want leaking of any kind, not anonymously. If anyone gets found out here, there are going to be consequences because of how badly the NFL does not want. Goodell works in service of the owners, and infighting among the owners, I don't think, serves anybody. So I did want to go back for a second, and I know you guys get tired of me talking about journalism all the time, but I do think it has value that a league partner, ESPN, paying billions of dollars for football, is still willing to do the work that pisses off Goodell, that isn't just going to listen to Goodell when he calls up, as David Sampson says, and tells Amazon, do not talk about this tonight. You guys are all just shrugging your shoulders at that, huh? That the big news story of the day would be skipped past by the new streamer that is paid $11 billion for the right to broadcast football and then is going to also going to allow football to tell them how they're allowed to do it. The NFL, you will hear from people in high-reaching places who have dealt with them. Extraordinary arrogance and power, know how strong they are, and bully everyone. Feel entitled to, yes, you will give us $11 billion, and we will also tell you the way to cover this. as I present that to the audience, do you guys believe anyone? You guys seem to be shrugging your shoulders. Yeah, Amazon won't talk about it tonight, not during the game. Don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Football reigns, toxic workplace, sexual harassment, owner who can't get gone. None of it matters. I just want to watch Commanders Bears. Like, I don't want to be bothered by all this stuff. I'm not that numb to misbehavior that I think the people in our audience are saying, I don't care if my league partners do anything that makes the NFL uncomfortable or more comfortable. I don't care the compromises that need to be made. I don't care about the conflicts, and I don't care about the truth. I want my football, my playpen by itself, and don't need to hear about what disarray the leadership of the Washington Commanders is in. I
guess the one thing that to me would stop Amazon is that like they don't have a news operation. They're not a journalistic enterprise. They own journalistic enterprises in the Washington Post, but Amazon itself is not a journalistic enterprise. Otherwise, if they wanted to, in some respects, Amazon might be the only company that is a league partner to the NFL that is more powerful than the NFL. They want to start a streaming business because it's just another area that they can dominate, and Amazon can dominate any area that they want to. They don't need to. They don't need to have the NFL. They would be just fine. Major media entities, in some ways, it's more commendable that Disney, a major media entity, if you're a broadcast network and you don't have the NFL, you're basically not a broadcast network at that point. Like, they need the NFL.
But I believe that this whole thing is dying, right? I believe that NBC and CBS and Fox and the need for the NFL is such, because all of those entities I just mentioned do have journalistic arms, but don't do this. This is a Pulitzer Prize winner and Seth Wickersham, both of whom have done months of reporting, talking to people that not a lot of people are talking to. These owners hide in the shadows, man. You do not. What did you like me learn what Tepper looked like this week or last week when he fired Matt Rule? I did not know what he looked like physically. These people, they are protected by Goodell. They are protected by money. They are protected by strength. They are protected by the league. And I do think it's laudable that ESPN is still doing this, but the NFL doesn't think it's laudable. And if none of your other league partners are doing this, eventually this is going to get squashed out there as well, because ESPN does or has wanted to do journalism, but it's harder to do. And you've got to have a Pulitzer Prize winner on staff. When do you ever see Don Van Natta? It's only when he's doing this, but their investigative arm is smaller than it's ever been. The outside the line stuff is gone. They've just got a handful of people doing it. They cause problems when they do it. Roger Goodell doesn't like this story. Roger Goodell, I'm not sure, understands why ESPN as a league partner would have to do this story. I don't know if you're Roger Goodell in the NFL, if you're not furious with ESPN because you're saying, do you see all these other league partners we have who don't do this? Do you see that Amazon doesn't talk about this tonight when we tell them, please don't talk about this tonight? Or here's the sentence you're allowed to say about this. I'm not kidding you that when we were in negotiations to do what it is that we did, that one of the thoughts in play was we cannot work with somebody in this sphere that has an ability to control what I can say about the NFL. I won't do it. I won't work with somebody so compromised that Goodell can make a phone call the way Manfred made a phone call at ESPN trying to stop what represents journalism. But I feel like I'm holding on to something that people in the audience don't actually care about. Or I shouldn't say people in our audience. I guess I should say that the grand majority of people watching tonight's football game won't even notice or care whether this story is mentioned or not.
And there are bigger reasons why the media as an institution is not valued in the same way. And also, as entertainment options democratized, there was a lesser emphasis placed on hard-hitting journalism being done of sports teams because people just prefer the games. They don't prefer these sorts of stories. I will give some credit
But
to other.
I don't know if that's true because those quotes I read, people like this story.
Oh, for sure.
This
Because it's
story, the
salacious.
owners digging dirt, private investigators, people like this story. You can't tell me. You can say you don't care generally right up until I put that story in your face and you're reading the first 10 paragraphs because you do actually care.
Well, I think that's the value that Don Van Natta presents to ESPN. It's why he commands a huge salary, is because these stories, these high-impact stories, do enter the news stream, and they lead the news stream, and ESPN puts the full force of their promotional vehicles behind it, and it becomes a really big thing, and it absolutely affects the way that we view tonight's game. But on the whole, as you've mentioned, ESPN is very much reduced the resources that they put into things like this, because at a certain time, ESPN had the ability to be all things to all people. They could do everything. It's like, why don't we do journalism? Why don't we do magazine? Why don't we do enterprise? Why don't we do investigation? We can do everything. We have all the money in the world. And now as they've had to shrink, one of the things that they've shrunk is their journalistic.
The strength of it is interesting, though, because there was, I don't know where on the graph you would meet in the growth of ESPN from 1981 and the NFL from where it was growing. But there was a point that ESPN and the NFL were equal powers. That is not the case anymore because the NFL is a giant that has very few equals anywhere in industry. But I actually understand, as much and as precious as I feel about the journalism and the journalism dying, I would side with the owners and Goodell on them thinking, why are you guys doing this? None of our other partners are doing this, and we don't need you to be a partner. You need us to be a partner. We can be a partner wherever it is we want. You paid billions of dollars, and it wasn't even for the Monday night game. It's just so that you can run video of our games all through your network through the entire week for 24 hours. You paid billions of dollars, not for that Monday night game, but for the ability to have our video all over your television all week. ESPN needs that. You would notice if the NFL pulled from ESPN, you would notice that ESPN would feel weaker because they've got photographic images instead of video on their television.
The NFL would feel lesser too, though. That's mutual. Being on SportsCenter is. I'm not saying that we can do the pie chart. It might be, but that is beneficial also to the NFL. They don't want to lose ESPN, as SportsCenter is way more popular than NFL Network is.
Correct. But if all of your league partners aren't doing this, if you've got control over everyone else except this one entity, and before this game tonight, you actually want ESPN acting as infomercial, please somehow sell Commanders Bears, not this way. Not arguing about Daniel Snyder, toxic workplace, and all this stuff that we don't want.
It does make me more likely to watch, though. It's a brutal game to watch, but
it's a Commanders game, like the team that Snyder owns. If this was a random sad NFL game that didn't have the Commanders, then I would think 1,000% they don't bring it up. The fact that it involves the Commanders
kind of makes me want to see how they
I'm leaning more towards, at least in the pregame, they have to at least mention this story. It involves the team that's playing tonight.
Guys, can I put on a tinfoil hat for a second and be a little conspiracy theorist?
I like
Go ahead.
it.
Amazon, owned by whom?
Jeff Bezos
has been sniffing around, possibly doing something with the NFL and owning the team. Maybe he brings it up to finally push Dan Snyder out to start buying or start the process of buying the Washington Commies.
That's a good conversation to think about. The idea that someone at Amazon is getting a call. Like David Sampson's theory is there's going to be a call, an edict, do not talk about this. You ain't telling Bezos what it is that he can or can't talk about unless it's contingent upon him keeping the relationship nice and smooth so that when Daniel Snyder is out, as Bezos buys giant properties in Washington, buys the Washington Post, and is reportedly interested in owning an NFL team because those never depreciate. It's an interesting theory, too. It's an interesting thing to think about how Bezos, if ever this got across the desk of Bezos, what it is that he would have as a play because he wants to make things uncomfortable for Snyder, too.
Wouldn't the richest guy in the world potentially want a lot of potential chances at owning NFL teams? And this story is potentially taking out other owners.
But also, like, if you're going to be one of the club, you don't want to be taking out the other owners, right? Like, you also have to be behaving like one of the club.
Well, TVN did it. It wasn't like Bezos isn't reporting this stuff.
Exactly.
But the Washington Post has done some of the most extensive investigative work. The Washington Post, owned by Bezos, has done some of the biggest work you've seen like this other than Don Van Natta?
And we've had some other journalists on, and they say that Jeff Bezos has nothing to do with the work that they're doing, that they would be doing that investigation anyway. I also think we should give credit to Tisha Thompson, whose byline is also on this story, and with Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham. But I just find overall really fascinated how this actually might work. That if this reporting is true and the NFL investigated it, like, is this going to actually run Daniel Snyder off? Because it seems like there is no amount of public pressure that has worked. I've actually found interesting because the NWSL story is still ongoing. It's the subject of today's Meadowlarkers. And there is campaigns right now to get multiple owners out of that league, and they seem to be trying to go for half measures. Oh, what if I don't have a governing role? What if I do this? What if I do that? Anything to keep my team. And for this owner, it's been 23 years of him being unpopular in DC, and nothing has gotten him out. Is this the thing that gets him out?
I'm just now imagining the Washington Post like sitting down where it's like, let's pitch stories. But what does that story do to get Jeff Bezos a football team? How do we get Jeff his football team?
Maybe it's coming from the top down, though.
That's how I would do it if I were Bezos. If I were Bezos and didn't have any reason to respect journalistic principles or a separation between the publisher and the editing arm, I would just tell my reporters, yes, find whatever you can to make it bad for Daniel Snyder so that you can make it easier for me to buy that team.
You don't need reporters for that. You just hire investigators like it seems like Daniel Snyder did, and you could get things on all of these owners, and then you could get any one of them out. But like to Witty's point, why are you going to have a ton of enemies when you come in?
Well,
I mean, it doesn't really matter
Here's
for
the thing,
him.
Billy. Hasn't everybody said that everybody in the NFL ownership group hates Daniel Snyder, right? So maybe Jeff Bezos coming in is the lesser of the two evils and being like, okay, we all don't like Daniel Snyder, even though the entire game is dirty. We're going to make a dirty play. Dirty play to get Daniel Snyder out. That's not a lesser
evil. Bezos is not an evil. They'd love to have him in that club. They just welcomed him in Walmart. Like, They'd love to have all the titans of industry in that room, especially if the trade out is Snyder for Bezos.
Well, and Bezos will definitely get a stadium deal done, whether he needs public financing or not. That dude's getting a stadium, I can tell you that.
And that's so important in the middle of all of this, the stadium and the business part of it. But I know many of you would prefer to talk about football itself. So Chris Cote was wondering which was the bigger of the games this weekend, Eagles, Cowboys, or Bills, Chiefs.
See, Bills Chiefs, like Tony just said, Bills Chiefs back here.
Bills, Chiefs.
But we know Bills Chiefs, like we know both those teams are going to at least the conference championship game, or at least the game before.
We know they're good. You don't know how far they're going, but you know that they are the cream of the crop in the league.
But that's going to be a saga, though, right? Like Bills Chiefs. Those will be the class of the AFC for a long time, and the narrative of how specifically their playoff game played out makes each successive meeting of the two teams more significant as a result.
Maybe we're doing a different argument here. What game will be more fun to watch? I'm with you, Chiefs Bills. But what game actually means more this Sunday? I think it's Cowboys Eagles.
Why though, Chris? Because Dak Prescott's not even playing, right? So you have Cooper Rush going against the Eagles, who are undefeated, and obviously the best team in the NFC, in my opinion. But you're looking across the spectrum saying, okay, you're going to have Dallas not at full strength, right? Dallas Schultz is hurt. Like, their offense is kind of in flux with Cooper Rush. Like, why?
I think
Billy, do you shake your head there? Excuse me, Chris. Do you shake your head because he throws in gratuitously, parenthetically, the Eagles, the best team in the NFC, in my opinion?
Yeah.
Why are you shaking your head every time Tony talks?
I mean,
I don't like what we do to Tony here.
Yeah,
He's doing good football stuff.
I'm still trying to.
Who's your best NFC team, Billy?
Who's my best NFC team?
Yeah, who's the best team in the NFC?
I like the
number
Eagles.
number five in the world ranked, right?
Yeah.
Or 6 now. David Sanson jumped you?
I just think
David
that
Sampson did not check
there's
me,
still
and you
people
know
out
that.
there. There's still people out there that are questioning the Eagles. They're like, I got to see more of it. They're 5-0.
5-0.
I'm just saying. I think that there's more questions about the Cowboys and the Eagles than there are about the Bills and the Chiefs.
But I also
we're having a semantics argument. What's a more valuable game this Sunday?
But you also look at the conference right now, and I don't see a lot of contenders. Like, even if the Cowboys lose this, who exactly is going to be catching them? The 2-3 New Orleans Saints, the 2-3 Chicago Bears, the 2-3 Atlanta Falcons, the 2-3 Seattle Seahawks. Like, I think both teams will be fine no matter who ends up losing this. It's only like if Cooper Rush goes 5-0, that's the only, for me, the significant part of that is, holy shit, like what is Dallas doing
Something
here
there,
with their winning quarterback?
If I was Cooper Rush, I'd be like, bring Dak back. I'll sit with just this 4-0 record.
Yeah,
No one's ever going to think
But
I'm
what if you get to
better
5-0
than right
though?
now.
Well, Chris Cote had a great theory on the Sunday Night Show, which for me is, should Cooper Rush just accept that he is going to become Chase Daniel and love the shit out of that life? That he's just going to be the most valued backup, but I don't ever need to play. If I don't start another game, I'm good.
Chase has made $40-something million and only started 5 games. Cooper Rush is about to have more career starts than Chase does.
I think Chase Daniel's like 166 career passes or something like that.
But I just feel like Cooper Rush has to look in the mirror and be like, look, he's like looking at himself. I'm Cooper Rush. All right? And look how people think I'm good right now. Let's just, how do I prolong this? What everyone thinks of me right now, how do I keep this going as long as possible?
Cooper Rush never looks in a mirror and thinks that Cooper Rush is looking back at him. Do you think Geno Smith looks in a mirror and what he sees looking back at him is what we think of Geno Smith? I don't think Cooper Rush got to be one of 32 jobs in the league because he looks in a mirror and doesn't have confidence about
He
Cooper
seems
Rush.
like he has perspective.
He doesn't
I think
see-
he looks at himself and says, hey, I'm Cooper Rush. Things have gone pretty well so far.
One of the things that I do think, I don't know whether it's being lost or not, but it is fairly absurd in that league where every damn week you're watching and there's a double doink to decide a game because at the end everyone's close. Not to the Bills, they're not. Like, the Dolphins won that one game, but we all watched how that went. It's not like we were saying, wow, the Dolphins are really much better than the Bills. No, the Bills are a lot better than everybody. Like, nobody wins the way they've won this season, 31-10, 45-10. Like, that's not, they've had the one game where they labor and everyone else, they're swamping.
They've made Patrick Mahomes a home underdog. It's the first time in his career. It's just the 9th time in his career overall that he is an underdog, period.
Billy, still with I don't buy on
Don't
the
buy the
Bills.
Bills, I'm
Because
telling you.
after you said Josh Allen sucks, a lot of people were pointing out that this weekend he had a pretty big game, including just the absurdity. It must be so fun to drop back into your own end zone. I saw one of the camera angles behind him. I don't know how he can see where anybody is. And he just launches it 50 yards, and he's throwing it to a spot on the field. I don't think he can even see where it's landing, but he can hear from the crowd noise what it is that has just happened. That must be an amazing feeling. I'm watching the camera angle from behind him in the end zone, and I'm like, that's not how?
And to think that his greatest misgiving as a quarterback coming into the league was his lack of precision. And now I don't think someone has ever turned it around in that respect to such a degree as Josh Allen. I don't think there is a greater progression from within an NFL career than Josh Allen. And it's absolutely remarkable. I think that is the ultimate sign of respect, that they're going to Arrowhead and the Chiefs are an underdog at home.
3-point dog, right? Is that line moving
I
at all?
think it's moved down to 2.5 last I checked on DraftKings, but even still, that's incredible. The Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes as their starter, have been underdogs 9 times. Mahomes has gone 7-0-1 in those games against the spread.
That math doesn't add up.
Well, no, this is the 9th time.
Oh, okay.
And so 8 previous times, 7-0-1.
Okay.
Dan, I saw the angle that you're talking about where it's almost like kind of underneath Josh Allen. And the fact that he's seeing the rush, his offensive linemen are getting pushed into his face, and he throws a ball. He's like, you can't really see if the safety's over the top or not. He's just throwing the ball 55 yards in the air. It was an incredible angle.
I had a pass like that in intramural football to Jaime Mota that I still remember because of how good it felt.
Oh, this is great. I love this. For me, so last night I played soccer and I had a 2-on-2 and I played a left-footed pass into the channel. Like it was I'm terrible with my left foot. And I like perfect way onto stride. The guy went and scored a goal. Like for me, the achievements that you hit your head on the pillow and it's not, what did I do in work that day? What is the greater significance? It's just this very minimal athletic achievement is the thing that I think about.
I've got 3 of those from my entire life. One of them, and my arm still hurts from it, was throwing a no-hitter as a little leaguer in Atom Ball when no one can hit. My father
How many
wrote,
walks?
My father wrote, it was not a perfect game. My father wrote, I'm proud of you on a baseball. It's the only time he's ever said that to me. I remember the orange writing. This football play that I'm talking about, an intramural football.
Jaime Mota
was going deep, and I didn't see where I was throwing the ball, but my teammates were happy. I was turning away, throwing a bomb, and facing the other direction, and it ended up in the right place. And a game winner in an intramural basketball game, the game-winning shot, and that's it. Those are my career highlights.
I just bowled a stuffed soccer ball from the kitchen into this room while the door was closing, while Chris Cote was walking through, and me and Mike Fuentes jumped up like we won the Super Bowl. It was so exciting.
I've got 3 as well.
Is one of them last night's left-footed pass in the channel?
Why are you looking down? Have you had these written, just waiting for this moment?
Yeah, you wrote them down.
Waiting for the
I had
Get the
this
fanfare.
in my binder.
Get the fanfare.
My binder of top 5s. One was a goal I scored from my own half. It was like the goalkeeper cleared it. We went racing off his line, and on the volley, I chipped it over him from about 40 yards out. Still thinking about that one. One was a birdie I had on Monday playing golf. Wow. And the other was when I was 11 years old. I was backing up the third baseman in baseball, and a guy stole third, got there successfully. Third baseman mishandled it. In backing him up, I picked him up, and the throw that I had from left field was flawlessly into the catcher's mitt as he's going down. Like his left hand with the glove is going down, and the ball went into the glove as it was going down, right into the tag. Again, head hits the pillow, first thing I think of.
That's good coaching right there, teaching you to back up that throw. Like that's where that starts.
I have 1, and I only need 1.
Oh, the home run.
The home run in a Major League ballpark.
But we've all seen you jump rope, so that balances that out.
That's true. That is true. That video never made it out, but that was true.
Why didn't the video make it out of Roy jumping rope? Roy's
Not my fault this time.
Roy is
He looked at the jump rope. He held the jump rope like it was like something. It was hilarious.
Roy doesn't think it's funny. Roy thinks that you guys have soured his big home
Roy
run
doesn't
moment.
lead the league in self-deprecation. Roy, come on, admit it. It was ridiculous.
No, I'm not laughing at that. No.
Oh,
Roy doesn't think it's funny. Your birdie, Whittingham, par 3?
Yeah, par 3. Great iron shot, 6-iron off the tee, and it left me with like a 22-foot putt. Drained it. Oh my God! I let out a big Tiger Woods fist pump. It was great. Oh, it's been the highlight of my week. I haven't stopped. Every time I'm here and you think I'm like paying attention, I'm just thinking about that putt.
Why?
Because it was that satisfying to have a genuine birdie when I'm a shit golfer.
No, to hit a ball to hit a ball well in golf when you're not any good at golf is you can understand in the moment of magic. You can understand. Oh, this is why people spend 4 hours and trying to get away from their partners.
Everyone has a moment when they're playing golf. Now, Chris Cody's good at golf, so he's probably long since been familiar with this feeling. When you're shit, you just want to have the 1 or 2 shots that
keeps you coming back.
That remind you why you come back to play.
And then somebody you're playing with says that's the shot that keeps you coming back.
I said that when I made the putt. I said that out loud. This is why I'm going to come back next time.
I've been very disappointed here this month because a couple of things look like they're falling apart that I have wanted to do. One of them, Tim Legler's not doing the big Halloween this year. We were going to plan to go up there, and he's moving and been moving to Florida, but we'll have to do that next year because we were planning to send people up there, but he's not doing it. And I want to do a live broadcast from Stan Van Gundy's pontoon boat, but Stan Van Gundy just informed me this week that he doesn't know if the lakes in Orlando are going to be not too high to be doing boating things. He's worried. And Orlando's one of the safest places in the United States from all of the climate change stuff, and it's still flooded, and I don't know. Roy was going to go sit next to Stan Van Gundy on a pontoon boat. What are you laughing about, Billy?
Well, because the commentary was made. Sounds like Stan just doesn't want us at his house.
The lake is extra lakey.
Too late.
And,
too much lake.
There's the waters are rising, and
I'll let you know when the water's less wet. Like, okay, thanks, Dan. See you there.
I believe we hatched a plan without any of you guys knowing that we were going to do the show. It would be Dan, Stu, Mike, and myself here, and the entire shipping container went to the pond.
Yeah, I saw that on the board.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, and we came up with this idea without telling any of you guys. We just committed you guys to drive up to Lake Mary.
I saw that
In
board.
1 day, back and forth.
I was off. I was left off both lists. So
Yeah,
I think
you
I had
weren't
that
on
day
either-
off. I guess
You weren't on either list. It was weird.
You should have also alleged the lakes are too high. This is a problem that I can't deal with.
too lakey.
I don't even know what's happening in Orlando. I had not considered the possibility that we couldn't go out on a boat because of the ramifications of Hurricane Ian.
They actually they dealt with some real stuff. The storm surge there. I saw some pictures on the Weather Channel. It's like, wait, really? I thought Orlando wasn't going to get too much of this, but they took it pretty bad.
Isn't it an hour inland? Isn't Orlando an hour off of the West Coast as they drive?
Well, and it's like an hour and a half off the East Coast as well. It's smack
That can't
dab
be
in the middle.
storm surge, right? Just rain.
Right, yeah, it's just a massive amount of rainfall. Yeah, and that's the thing is that those storms are so powerful, and also like the coastal towns always take the worst impact because they get it first, and the second that a hurricane makes contact with land, then it immediately lessens, and so you're never really going to get that strong of a storm hit Orlando. But the other thing too that happened with Ian was it slowed down. It slowed down over an area, so this massive amount of rainfall is just sort of stuck there, and so the huge areas of downtowns were flooding.
The Legler thing bummed me out because I was so excited about touring his new Halloween property, and Billy's ready for Halloween. Billy, I don't know, Billy, if this is you are with child or you're always a planner or you are
As a child,
you are.
Yeah, there's bats in my house right now, Dan.
What?
Yeah, there's bats.
There's bats
in
in Westchester?
Yeah, my house. All over my walls, bats glued to the walls.
Oh.
My daughter walks out, she goes, "Wow!" Every morning, it's like, "We've seen it yesterday. Like, relax. They're not changing. Calm down." So there's bats in my house, and we already have done. Guys, I don't know about you. I have two things. One, are you guys? Wait, do you guys do Halloween? Are you guys doing costumes? Dan, you're a costume guy. Have you guys picked out
I'm
your
not a
costumes yet?
costume
come on,
guy.
Dan. Yeah,
You're here like a costume once a
Don't
week.
lie.
My wife is a costume. She likes making costumes. I'm a costume guy. When
Every,
have you-
like, Wednesday, you're in a
before I got
costume.
married, when was the last? I'm in a costume because I pay my bets unlike
Oh,
everyone
that's
else
another
around
thing.
here.
Yeah.
Hey,
You still have the other one.
Yeah, we have 3 we need to select still. When are we going to select that? Because everybody owes like 18 and we need to actually select
You're
them.
the commissioner, Billy. I don't know why you're asking us.
Well, because I give you guys a list and no one picks anything, but it's bad content, so we have to sit down and do it
Yeah,
like one
but-
day off air.
Video producer Mike Fuentes had a great idea. Let's do a draft. A snake
Draft.
draft.
All right.
Where we all sit down around a table.
Billy, you're in charge.
We have the options in front of us, and we sit around and draft our
it's a
punishment.
deep concept by Mike Fuentes. We select them.
Yeah. I don't like Mike Fuentes. He's too much of an idea guy. You know what I mean? He creates all this extra work for everybody. Like, let's calm down. A little brown nose without Mike Fuentes.
whoa.
We get to that
nose?
another day. Yeah.
Why,
We'll talk
why
about
is
that
all
another day.
initiative shat upon?
No.
Brown nose. No. Okay.
I don't like that word. That's a misused word.
What's
anyway,
your costume?
Okay, so we got costumes, but Dan, October 31st is Halloween this year, as it is every year. We already got the costumes, which is like an incredible feeling because we're finally ahead on costumes. I don't know how early you guys usually pick out your costumes, but we have gotten it
It
done.
can't be that good of a feeling.
October 30th.
That's the thing, is that's when it always is, but I finally have costumes.
And does it really feel that great?
Yeah, I don't have the stress, even though I got the wrong size, so I have to return it and get it back.
You're doing like
just
a
I
family
do with
costume
jersey.
thing?
Yeah. You want to know what it is? My daughter's baby shark and I'm daddy shark, and then my wife's mommy shark. And the thing
Original.
plays the music. Yeah. But here's the thing, Dan. I'm trying to get ahead on Halloween, so we'd have the decorations up. We have the costumes. I want to get the candy, but I don't trust myself with all of that candy in my house for 3 weeks because it's going to go. But then the week of candy, it's all going to be gone. So what should I do? Should I hide this candy? Like, how do I play this candy
But you don't
situation?
trust it because
I will
someone
eat it.
else. Okay, you can't
I
hide
will
it
eat
from
it. Be
Be
yourself, though.
self-disciplined?
Yeah.
That's not an option.
But neither is hiding it from yourself.
I'm very forgetful. I lose my wallet all the time, so much so that my wife got me this like Apple thing that beeps every time that I lose it. I just put it on my
Little low, to
phone
be honest.
like,
The
huh?
beeping is a little low.
It is too low because the design is poor on this wallet, and I don't know who makes this wallet, but the design is poor because the beeping comes out on the other end of the little ping thing, whatever it's called. So I lose things all the time. So it's possible that I can lose it, but then the problem is What if I just have melted chocolate somewhere because I bought this candy, I hid it, I forgot where it was, and then 3 years from now I find it like, oh, here it is in the bottom of the AC closet. How did that happen?
What is it that is most likely to tempt you? Have you not bought any of this candy yet?
I haven't. And there's a lot of stress. There's not like a lot of trick-or-treaters in my area. And also we're now trick-or-treating with the kids. So like how many people are going to come while we're actually there, right? But do you not get stressed out about like what candy to get? Because you don't want to have the bad candy.
I've literally never in my life stressed Halloween candy.
What?
I just like the week of, I go, I buy a bag, I put it in a bowl.
What's the
I
bag?
eat it.
Billy, isn't the solution to buy candy that you don't like?
No, because then
Don't be the
assume
guy with a
other
bunch of
people-
almond joy. You can't be giving out a bunch of almond joy.
Exactly.
But there's got to be something that's a consensus good candy that you don't like.
No, because
Roy, you don't like butterscotch?
No, I like
Oh,
caramels.
butterscotch
I don't
is
like
wonderful.
butterscotch. Butterscotch is bad.
I just get worried because I don't want to be the house that people don't want to go to because they don't want the bad candy.
But if you're not there, what does it matter? You're out trick-or-treating, and then people go to your house while you're not there.
You're doing a sign that says take one? You're doing one of those things? Like putting the bucket out there and leaving it?
No.
Is there a medium candy that wouldn't tempt you? Like something in the middle, something that's not your go-to, but also,
Yeah.
what are the worst things? Black licorice is one of the worst things. Like, what are the worst things that you can give people as candies that wouldn't tempt you at all? The very worst of the, after rainbow fentanyl, the very worst of the candies that you would have in the bag.
Whoppers. That's terrible.
Whoppers, the milk chocolatey milk dud crunch
Malted balls,
things.
yeah.
You don't like those?
Terrible.
I don't like the people that try to change it up. Like, oh, I'm going to give you Capri Suns.
Yeah,
Like, hey,
I don't like
You know
that.
what? This is Halloween. Candy, please.
Exactly
I'm not
right.
thirsty.
Billy, what are the things that would be in the middle on tempting perhaps, but not so tempting that you would have to hide it for yourself because
Milky
you have
Ways
no
I wouldn't
restraint?
eat. I don't want Milky Ways.
Milky
So then,
Ways.
so then
I
get
figured
so
that
then
would
get
be it,
Milky
yeah.
Ways.
But I don't want. But no, because then when people don't come to my house for Halloween, I have a bag full of Milky Ways that I don't want. What am I supposed to do with
Musketeers.
that?
got-
Bring him to work.
I got
Nah.
one. Dots. Get these dots
Ooh,
out of
Stuck
here.
in your teeth. Yeah, they get stuck in your teeth.
Dots
Yeah.
is a good show.
Yeah.
Which are the dots?
These things right here.
People,
I'll show you
people
on a
Come
visual.
on
I'll show you on a
sleeve.
podcast
Yeah,
right here.
a useless
Those are
sleeve
dots.
of nonsense.
Those
It
are
just-
okay. You
No.
can pick out some. You know which ones I don't like? I don't like these. The one that's in this clear wrapper that it's just like it's almost like gumballs that aren't gumballs. It's like
Yeah.
a hard candy. Those things suck.
What about these things that
Jawbreakers?
look like Tootsie Rolls, but they're like light blue and like orange?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Good. Those are Tootsie
Nah.
Rolls with
Not for me,
flavor.
Clive.
Oh,
Not
Tootsie
for
Rolls.
me, Clive.
Tootsie Roll
Tootsie
shite
Roll.
shoes. Yeah,
Shite.
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Billy's taste in candy, I think, isn't going to align
Delicious.
with everyone else's taste in candy.
What do you mean?
I just don't think that everyone else here has your taste in candy when
They don't have refined palates, is what it is.
The goat candy
That's what
is
it
give
is.
me this small Snickers. That's it. That's all I want. If I can do
No,
a bag
no,
full of
no,
those small Snickers.
No. The perfect size Snick. You're talking about the little one that's
Yeah.
just like a size of a
Single
quarter.
bite. You open
The
it up.
front bite.
I'll literally
Bad.
eat 17 of those. in
No,
one
get the
night.
fun size one. Get the middle one. You know what I mean? That it's a 2-bite. A 2-bite Snickers is better than that little
no,
one.
but I'll eat 17 of those too, and then it's double the calories.
But the portions are off on the little one. I don't like the portions on the little one.
it's just one bite. Boom.
No,
I
but
throw it
they-
up. Sometimes I do the thing you do with popcorn. Throw it up, catch it.
Have you ever choked on one?
No. I'm
you
good.
are. It's not going to be surprising to anyone that you and me would be people who would toss chocolate in the air and catch it with our mouth like a sea
like
lion.
a walrus. Yeah.